Hi, Uncle Bob here. A while ago I bought Super Fantasy Kingdom and I played it pretty regularly. First of all, I was intrigued by the unusual combination of many genres. In this video, you will learn what the gameplay looks like, whether it's worth playing, and how this mishmash turned out. Welcome. Super Fantasy Kingdom was released quite recently, on October 24. It is a combination of roguelike, idle, auto battle and tower defense. But what are we doing here? Where to start? Maybe with the specifics. The goal of the game is to build your village and survive as long as possible, while fending off attacks from fairy tale creatures. It sounds simple, and it is, but the game has various systems that make it quite confusing. And not everything is explained well, or at all. Let's take a closer look at the gameplay. Our task is to survive as many days as possible. The first part of the day is calm, so we can focus on assigning work to workers and choosing a production strategy for the day. We decide what resources to collect today, whether to build a new building, make an improvement, or purchase a unit. We have to choose what is most important to us, what to spend our precious resources on, because there is always a shortage of them, and there will always be something missing. And we have to keep in mind the growth of our village in terms of production and defense, because in the afternoon enemy forces will attack and continue until late in the evening. After successfully fighting off the attack, our warriors go to rest in the tavern, which we built first when starting to build our village. It is in the tavern that our defenders rest after each day of fighting. Eat their supper and gain experience. Yes, our heroes don't gain experience by killing creatures, but by eating. The amount of experience gained depends on the type of food eaten, not on how many opponents they have killed. I will come back to the issue of food later. Now let me continue explaining the basics. So the tavern is built, then we build a woodshed so that we can obtain the basic resource, which is, of course, wood. Then we build a house for the worker, as there is always a shortage of them, and the functioning of the entire kingdom depends on them. Next in line is the quarry, and its construction completes the circle of basic resources. We recruit units to defend our settlement in exchange for resources. However, we do not build barracks here, and do not hire dozens of clones to serve the glory of the kingdom. We find our defenders on the map, standing by buildings or in the field, and for the right price they will come to support us, with their swords, bows, or mysterious book of the dead, summoning hordes of zombies emerging from the ground. Yes, the range of mercenaries and their weapons is quite wide. Not only humans, elves or dwarves will stand by our side, but also cyclops, undead and other fantasy creatures. The same goes for our enemies. We are attacked by fairies, wizards, ghosts and werewolves. Overall, the developers did not limit themselves to cliched skeletons and call it a day. There is real diversity here. While we're still on the subject of people, let's get back to food. As I mentioned, after a day of fighting, our heroes eat a meal and get experience points for it. How much experience they get depends on what they eat. The rarer and harder to obtain the food is, the more experience points they get. It may also happen that there is not enough food for one of the warriors, in which case he will be unhappy the next day, which also affects his performance in battle. One of the tasks is to ensure that you do not spend 99% of food during a single game. This means that for many days we do not gain experience for our defenders, which makes our survival even more difficult. And anyway, the game is difficult, or rather very difficult. Literally, the first task we find on the map is to lose the game. Returning to the topic of food, it may happen that we run out of even the most basic type of wood. Imagine my surprise when at one point I saw empty shelves in the food storage room, despite having a person permanently assigned to gather food. It turns out that once we have picked all the bushes with these fruits, they will not magically reappear the next morning. We have to assign a worker to plant them. And here's the problem, the game doesn't tell us that the bushes are running out. But that's not big deal, we can figure that out. But how to plant new bushes is something we have to figure out by reading the description of building and their upgrades. And in the end, it turns out that we don't strictly plant bushes with berries, but we have to build a specific gatherer's hut dedicated only to these fruits, and what's worse, he will collect berries from completely different bushes, which are found while the geologist is working. I think you agree that this is a bit confusing. There are more such understatement issues, and we have to figure out for ourselves what to combine with what. In today's gaming standards, we are held by the hand and guided through tutorials, related to even the smallest details. Personally, I'm not a fan of a million hints, but I think that such confusion in the game is unnecessary, unless something was not fully thought through here. One such mini confusing issue at the beginning is the information that some units can stand on the tower of our walls. Okay, but we can only build the wall at level 3 of our castle, and only then we can add towers. Then this information is clear to us. In my case, my initial reaction was on which tower, as there is only plain ground here, and I tried to garrison a defender on the main castle. The same applies to the evolution of units. We discovered the point for upgrading a unit quite quickly, but in order to use it, we must already have an upgraded soldier, which is something I was unable to achieve after 10 hours of play. It's just that we get some information much earlier than we can use it in any way, which leads to unnecessary guesswork and confusion. And another element we need to figure out are some of the tasks. For example, I unlocked a hole in the ground and a character giving me a task to sacrifice one of our units. So far, I don't know how to do it. I tried dragging the character over the hole, looked at his stats on the screen to see if he had that option, and even tried throwing a dead defender in there, but nothing happened. I have no idea how or when I'll be able to do it. There's also the issue of the interface. It looks cool, but there's no screen that combines all the information. I often searched for a specific thing and had to click on all the building sites, both small and large, to find what I needed, and on places on the map when I wanted to upgrade a character. To clarify, we built our settlements buildings in designed areas, which are divided into small and large ones. We mainly built residential houses and gatherers' huts on the small ones. On the large ones, we built a sawmill, a quarry, or a cemetery. A little tip on upgrading units. At the bottom of the screen there is a bar with our defenders. When you hover your mouse over a given portrait, you can upgrade it using resources. At first I didn't notice this and was moving my mouse around the entire map, looking for the original recruitment locations of each warrior, because that's where we can upgrade them as well. But speaking of the map, maybe it's time to talk about it, and delve into what the game has to offer. At the start, we only have access to a small section of the map extending a few steps beyond our defensive lines. To unlock more parts of the world, we need to have earned a certain number of glory, which we get for every bit of progress we make. The more days we survive, the more caps we get. By unlocking new parts of the map, we gain access to new missions, markets, defenders, special building sites, altars, and a whole pool of various events. Altars allow us to purchase permanent upgrades for the next game. They are the driving force behind our development. Thanks to them we can start with one more villager next time. We will get a little more wood, gold or food. We pay for these upgrades with crystals, which we collect in various ways, such as defeating a boss or completing a task. When our hero falls under a storm of enemies, we move to the throne room. Here we can forge equipment for our mercenaries and choose a hero to make another attempt at survival. There are several heroes, each differing in type of attacks, whether ranged or melee. Strategies can vary. We can focus on strengthening physical attacks and choose opponents who are more vulnerable to this type of damage. Overall, the game is really enjoyable, but it has one significant drawback. At least for me it is a drawback, and it concerns the slow pace of progress. The upgrades you gain on the map are not very noticeable throughout the game. Yes, an additional walker will significantly speed up the development of our settlement, allowing us to go further and unlock more new things. But an additional berry at the start has a marginal effect on acceleration the whole process. One patch has already been released to speed up the whole process, but for my taste it's still not enough. Without Adapt, the support of the developers is an advantage. with 12 patches released since launch to improve the gameplay. Kudos to them for that. I particularly like the music that plays during the day. It reminds me a lot of the music from Chrono Trigger, an old game with one of the best soundtracks ever. I could end up my review here, but this game has another side to it, literally. After a few hours of playing, I noticed a message with an icon. Intrigued, I clicked on it and I got a bit of shock. It turns out that we can also play as an undead faction, with a new hero, a new settlement management system, a completely new map and new quests. It's great, we can see the other side of the coin, which definitely extended my interest in this title. If you are not put off by the graphics, I definitely recommend this game. Sure, it's not polished and it's confusing in places, but above all, it's fun to play. After a defeat, you want to try something else, focus on a different aspect, play with a different character, unlock another part of the map, and get a new defender. Besides, the game is strongly supported by the developers, and they will probably add more than one thing, and slowly bring the current system into order. I give the game a rating of 4 out of 5. This game is not expensive, and after 10 hours spent playing it, I still have a lot to discover, and above all, I want to play another round. That's all for today, see you next time.